How's it going, YouTube? This is Unknown Soldier here. Ooh, after a long hiatus of making videos because my my camera died, or at least the one I used to take videos with. So, trying out a new GoPro 7. Not working as well as I thought, but it takes pretty good pictures, and the video's okay, if a bit fish lensy. But we'll make do. I'll probably have to do voiceovers because the current case I carry it in doesn't really pick up my voice that well, but we'll see what happens. But I wanted to give you guys just a quick update. I'm slowly piecing together parts like I always do, and we are taking a look at the 98 black GTP coupe I have, codenamed Panther. Just a nickname for me. I've said that before in its debut video. But so the first picture that is up, you guys will see the rear end of the car, obviously, and not much has changed. It hasn't moved. I've put a tire next to it. I intend to put tires on the rear and try and lift the front with our skid steer and just kind of maneuver it out into a workable area after I've done regular maintenance on all my driving cars, of course, so that's 4 cars in total, but no big deal. And then we'll move around to the interior where I just opened the door. You can see that the dash and all the electronics in the dash have been moved. I got bored one night after working long hours and I wanted to do something that was fun to me. And I figured, you know what, I'll just go out here, have a cigar, slowly work on pulling this car apart because, as I've stated, I'm not a big fan of the tan interiors. And, excuse me, got the hiccups from eating. I shouldn't have ate before recording this, but basically just getting all that out of the way. And then the 2000 parts coupe, the white one I have, or had, as I'll explain later, was going to be the replacement interior, and is going to be the replacement interior for this car. So, thought best place to start, pull all the instrument clusters out because I have to put a battery in it to pop the truck to get the rest of the tools out, or the parts. And I wanted to make sure there was no mouse chewing on wires or anything like that. And everything seems to be pretty good so far. We'll get a closer up shot of that later. But so I did want to film this. I did not get the chance because my GoPro did not arrive until very recently. And unfortunately, I was going to film pulling everything out of the other car, but that one also got sold to a buddy of mine at work who needed a demo car. Now, normally I'm not in favor of demos. I like fixing, not destroying, and where I can. But this car's frame had it at this point, so I bought it solely for the interior and the rims, and the motor and transmission working were just a very nice plus. So depending on what happens to the car in the demo, I might buy it back. But the only thing I wasn't able to salvage was the steering wheel and the driver seat because he needed those for demoing. But we'll move on. So now looking at the fun torn apart interior, which definitely didn't look like this last time, more so on the roof. I've pulled the sunroof trim, little rectangle thing out. It was pretty easy. Just be gentle with it and it'll pull right out. So, and then obviously the nav lights are pulled out, and that was pretty easy too. Nothing really broke, but I got to remove all that anyway for when I pull the headliner down. It's a whole thing. It's actually not that hard. It's surprisingly easy for what I want. Now, I shouldn't say that because you got to pull all the interior trim out to get it out, but if you're doing what I'm doing, which is revamping this whole car, yeah, it'll be perfect. So, but you got to get the sun visors out too, and since these have the lighted option, there is a connector on the top of, well, between where the nav lights are and the sides of the sun visors where they're mounted to the roof. There's a connector up there, so I'll be able to unplug those when I pull those down, so I might just screw that one back up until I'm ready to get to that point. So it's no big deal, but I did get, it's surprisingly cheap actually, to get the cloth, and apparently it's pre-cut. We'll see how true that is. In any color you want to replace your headliner color. So I bought black because I want this to be a black on black car, and the fabric's pretty black. It came with both for the headliner and for the sun visors of all things. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to work out, but we'll get there. So a little bit of stitching or taking it to a professional won't be out of hand for those. So, but we'll see what happens. I can always replace them with ones later if that works too. So, and of course another picture closer on the sun visor. just I was just looking at it closer, thinking how was I gonna trade the color, or not the color, the fabric out for a different color one. So, and then obviously I'll probably paint the flaps there black or whatever comes up. So there's gonna be a lot of painting in this. So a lot of trim is gonna get painted instead of finding another one. I'm just gonna paint it the color I want this. Give it a nice powder coat color and then a clear coat to protect it. So, and now we're kind of looking at it a little bit deeper shot of the interior. My main focus on that was the passenger door. You can see, if you haven't noticed it already, I have cleaned out the interior a little bit better. The gas tank and all the parts in the back seat aren't there. So, but I was trying to get that passenger door open to get the fuel tank out, and I couldn't get it to open. I couldn't get it to open, not with the key, not with the inside door handle. So that means the mechanism's broken, and I'm just going to have to destroy that door trim to get to it. I don't really want to, even though I don't like the color. It's all sun bleached and looks nasty, but like I said, I don't like destroying things, so I'll probably just come in with side cutters and cut right where the handle is there and where the bottom is, so I can reach my hand in there and pull on the linkage to open that door, which shouldn't be too hard. So, and then that door will open. I'll get the rest of the paneling off and save the wiring harness, of course, because I don't want to destroy that. But that's good. And it just kind of blows. I was hoping the door would just open. So, and then from there, once I've removed both front seats, because I've got the center console out already, it was pretty much destroyed when I got it. But then I'll move on to the back seats, which you're looking at now, and their trim panels on the sides. Since there's no doors back there, it's just a trim panel, and those are also surprisingly easy to get out, but you have to kind of take the seats out first, which is also pretty easy. But there's also an interesting spot, and I'm sure this will come up in another video, because I'm actually going to film myself taking these out and then just voice over them after the fact. But there's a particular spot where the passenger rear seat will, or even the driver one, can develop a rust belt, and it'll eat through. And if you ever live on a country road like I do, and you're wondering why is there so much dust in my car, that is one of a couple spots that seem to let dust in. So, along with rusted quarter panels, which are surprisingly easy to replace, or look like they'll be easy to weld up, compared to a normal four-door. So that was kind of cool. You get to kind of see how the car is bolted together once you take all of the interior out. Who would have thought? But going from there, because there's not much to it, I'll take the rear deck lid off and everything, because I got another one coming in, and with more black carpet and all that good stuff. And we'll move on to the steering wheel. I wouldn't have included what I'm about to tell you until I would oh, you can hear my chairs creaking, but where was I? Right, steering wheel controls for the radio. These buttons are, while functional, are worn, and since I'm going to be putting in new sound system and everything, nothing fancy, just brand new, so everything kind of works. Maybe a small subwoofer. It's not really my thing, but if my brothers drive this car, they'll want it, so I'll just put it in there because I'm having all the interior out now. Now's the time to run wires for accessories, hardwire it if you want to, but we'll get to those. Anyway, the buttons, after a side tangent. I was looking for replacement buttons, the gray style, and I found black buttons. I believe they're from a Camaro. And I had never seen, through all of the pictures and videos of people who have these cars and that meets, I've never seen anyone be that detailed to swap these out for the black buttons. And I don't know if it's because they don't know if it's compatible. They look compatible. It's the same pinout. There's a little connector on the back, which I'll show you guys pictures of these gray ones. But it's the same connector. So I'm going to try and find a relatively intact steering wheel from the 97 to 2000 years that's black or close enough, and put these buttons in. So I may end up just using the steering wheel. It's not in bad shape. It's just been sun faded a little bit, which doesn't bother me in the slightest, but I thought it'd be a cool accent to add on the black on black theme for this car. So I might add pictures of those, but I'll just wait until we install them. So they're actually about $40 on eBay. So at the time of this, so, but no big deal. Here's the front of the buttons. This is a little newer style button. I think these are for the Firebird style, but they slot in the same. It's the same pinout, everything. So there's the front, And there's the back, and you can see it's a 5-pin connector. Easy peasy. These things just pull in and they pop in, they pop out. So, and the hardest part will probably be connecting it back up, but with a gentle hand and a straight screwdriver, it should plug back in no problem. So now moving on to the center console and the dash, you can see again I have all the electronics removed, and I've exposed the wiring since the center console's not there. So it's not terrible. I would recommend, if you're wanting to pull the console out, you remove at least the dash trim that is colored with the dash and all that, because it'll make it easier trying to, when you get to unbolting the center console, to pull it out. So that way it doesn't catch on it. It's super tight margins. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. I didn't try it. I also couldn't try it in this car. I did it in the parts car, but no big deal. So basically, I'm going to go through all that wiring. I got to fix the preferential shift button on the shifter because it's stuck. I'm sure it just needs a new spring or something. Get rid of the tacky overlay they had on the park neutral drive selector. Replace bulbs, of course. Check all those wire harnesses. Make sure the wires are good, the connectors are good, because they shake loose after, good lord, almost 25 years worth of operation. Oil up the mechanism, all that stuff, and then before I put the console in all the way, you can put the console in and then you have the dash piece that comes off, or the trim piece over top of the selector. I'm going to run wiring for some lighting, and that way it'll be hidden in there, it'll look nice, all that good stuff. So, but step one, I got to remove everything, including the carpet. The carpet's coming out. I got a brand new carpet for this thing, which is black, obviously, and so I'll have to tie all that up, get everything out, put the carpet back in after fixing any rust I find, and I'm sure I'll find it, and then run wires, make it all look nice. So there may or may not be a inverter placed in front of the shifter where those wires are. There's a lot of empty space up there, but we'll see what happens. So I obviously want to be able to get to it in case it catches fire or I need to service it or something like that. So, but there also might be, and this is going to sound really, really dumb to people, and I don't blame you for saying it's dumb, but if I ever decide to have nitrous on this car, which I don't know why, I'm not a big nitrous person, I'd rather just make it, but if I ever want to tinker with it, now's the time to run it. So I might run wires for it and just have them never used in that case. But the button would be on the center console trim for that, so because I don't think I'm going to mount it to the steering wheel. But moving on to the instrument cluster, I have found just a preliminary work or a look at it, because I do electronics stuff at my workplace. The preferential shift. Now I have a GTP. It's a 2000. It's the dark blue one. And even though I hit the button, the light doesn't click on in the instrument cluster. And I think it's supposed to. I haven't found any information on the pref light. I mean, you'll see it kind of right by where my thumb is pointing. Well, it's right under there. But there is a light for it on the back of the instrument cluster, which we'll see here in a short second. It is wired. You can see, now that we're looking at the back here, all these gray knob-looking things, those are lighting. So those are your lights for your instrument cluster. And towards the right-hand side, and if you're looking by the giant yellow connector right there, or the medium-sized yellow connector, the second one down, but still towards the top, that one is your pref light. And if you follow these traces back, this is really weird. Like overlay of wiring, like a piece. It's a very, very flexible PCB, so don't tear it trying to get anything out. So, but it does go back to the connector that slots. There's two connectors that slot in and click in, but there is a wiring for it, and there's also, if you were so inclined, there's spare bulbs, and those also have traces that run back to these two harnesses. And being not an electrician but a tinkerer, as long as you can hook up or find where the wire harness hooks up to those those bulbs, you can, in theory, program it for whatever you want, in a sense. You could just hook it up to a relay and say, alright, if you have like cool fog lights or an underglow kit and you want to know if it's on or off, you tie in your relay to turn on and off the underglow kit, tie off for the relay to say, hey, when the relay is active, it turns on the underglow kit and then turns on the normally closed or normally open contact and send it to this light. Some of you might understand what that was, or what I just said. Some of you won't. Basically, it just means you run an auxiliary wire to this light to say, hey, on, off, when your piece of equipment's on, off. So I might try that for various things, just to say I did it, and I'll certainly document it as I go. So, moving on from there, but still on the same subject, your driver information center. Now, the nice ones with the screens actually are a little less desirable if you want to have your own programmed lights on your dash. I mean, I don't know how many people would be interested in this, but it's certainly possible. Like where your low track and TCS off are, the low track on this one that you're looking at has a spare bulb up top, right above it. So there's one bulb that lights the low track lettering, and then there's one above it. In theory, you could just carve out or carefully have one made where you just cut out the black, so you have a translucent layer, obviously, and the black just covers it so nothing comes through. And you can have it say whatever you wanted, or you could just have it be a circle if you wanted like an alarm light for like a boost gauge or something. But in the same thing, you could have that wired up however you want. So you could have it be on condition if like you're running a turbo, or if you're running nitrous, like that's going to be mine. I'm going to have my a nitrous light if I ever decide to do it on this project, wired up to either that one on the driver information center, the the dick, or the instrument cluster, instead of having it be on the gauge pod, that the 52 millimeter gauge pod. It can still do that, but I just thought it'd be cool to wire one up to the dash. It'd be something unique, But I just wanted to point that out because I'll certainly be exploring that. And you can see my fingers pointing right at the blank spot, but there is a spare bulb there. So it's not actually populated on this one, but there is wiring to it. If you hooked it up, it would work. So, but that's a whole other wiring tangent we'll get into when I get to that point. But now you're looking at trim. This is the door trim from the coupe there, where the driver's side. And realistically, I'm going to repaint this. I'm not going to go find another one. I certainly have some that I pulled out of the other coupe, the parts coupe, but it's a graphite gray, and I was like, if I'm going to paint one, I may as well just paint the original one on the car. So, and then there again is this sunroof trim. That'll get painted black as well. And then, yeah, you're now looking at a pile of my parts that I had taken out of the 2000 white coupe, and although some of it won't be used in this project, a lot of it will. So, like, depending on how dark I want the dash to stay, I might just paint the dash trim. But then, like, the center console obviously is going into this 98 coupe, and then I took the windows out because he didn't need them. So I'm going to tint these now because they have the, for lack of a better term, they have the marks for where they go into the sides and top of the window when they're sealed, or when you have the window all the way up. So you have the points where you want the trim to be cut so it doesn't get flaky or get peeled as you're rolling up and down the window after how many ever times you roll them up and down. But I'll excuse me, tint those now, and then swap them for the ones that's in there. Swap the windows, I should say. So these will be tinted, ready to go. I didn't get the cab corner windows from the old coupe because realistically I just ran out of time and I wasn't gonna fight it. So, but I'll just tint those in place, and then piece the car back together from there. So, and then from there, from doing the interior work, once I have it all stripped, and at least the steering wheel rigged up for moving if I need it, although it doesn't need it now because it's not hooked up. There's no tie rods holding it up, so I guess I can just pull it all out now. Where that tire is sitting, I'm going to, like I said at the beginning of this, put the tires back on and just be able to kind of roll it around if need be. Just lift it from the front. I'll take the front bumper off and probably the fenders as well, so I can just move it with anything and just kind of move it where I want it. So, but then I will start on rear suspension, so struts, tie rods. No, there's no tie rods in the back per se, but you have your sway bar links, sway bar control arms, and then the rear control arms, and then I think trailing arm is the right word. So you got like two sets back there. Get all that new. Make sure that's not, damaged in any way, because if it is, it'll realistically put a hamper on this car project. But if it's not, or if I can just weld it, because I'm not going to sell this car to anyone, it's just going to be for me, I'll do all that. Then we'll move on to the brakes. So upgraded brake rotors, I'll have to size up, and as much as I hate aftermarket rims, I want to try and keep this car as a SLP replica. So they had the 6-spoke rims, and there is something similar. It's not at all close, but it's similar in matte black. Excuse me, in 18-inch tires, and I'll go with the ZZP 12-inch rear brake upgrade. So new calipers, stainless steel brake lines all the way. You know, from the actual brake line to the brake to caliper hoses, all that'll be stainless. New fuel lines ran, a new fuel tank, new fuel pump rewire, so that way everything's good. The wiring will be good. Check the wiring for the brakes. Make sure the back is sealed. Depending on how it goes, I may try and swap the spare tire well for a secondary fuel tank, and I just gotta kind of measure and figure out how I would plumb it to the normal fuel tank, because I don't want to put a second pump in. I don't want to have a selector switch. I want it to just kind of auto balance between the two. So it's doable. I have a couple I think they're truck tanks of all things. They're just square or rectangular, and we'll just mount it up in, because I'll just saw that off, put a plate over it, put the tank, make the straps that hold it, and as long as it doesn't interfere with the mufflers, and I can still get tubing to get to the other fuel tank, we should be good. So obviously I'm going to want a metal OEM fuel tank for the normal fuel tank, but that way you just have some more capacity, because this I'll go on trips with if I ever get this car up and going with, you know, just goofing off. So, and that's kind of where we're at. I'll get into the nitty gritty of what I want to do with like the engine and transmission and the power setup, because you heard me mention nitrous. That is not going to be a mainstay. I'd rather go with the supercharger only than just nitrous, but I want to try and go with a supercharger turbo combo, because I just want to hate my life and I want to hate my money, and and I figure if I'm gonna try all this, I may as well just have a car dedicated to it. So, and it'll be good practice for when I want to do other projects, because I'll have to do this interior restore and undercarriage rework on all of them. They all need it. So after 22, 23 years of road work, and Lord knows how many college kids do some of these. So, but that's kind of where I'm going to end it. I'm sorry for the slideshow. I'm sorry for the rambly overlay of my voice and random stuttering and pausing. So it's just kind of one of those rant videos. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, hey, give me your money instead of burning it, just leave it in the comments below.